5, 4. Good morning, folks. Welcome to America's Talk Show, the unaffiliated after to Mark Halperin's Two-Way. Today is Thursday, June 26, 2025. Lots to talk about, folks. Some headlines. Let's see. House Republicans subpoena Act Blue execs over 2024 donation probe. What else we got? UK to buy nuclear-capable F-35A jets for the first time. Mediator drops $20 million settlement in Trump's CBN lawsuit. Something about Zoran Memdani. But you guys don't want to talk about any of that stuff. We want to carry on the conversation. Joshua, with your hand up, sir.
Hey, thanks. I just want to sort of throw this out there. When I first heard of Two-Way, and then first started watching, I saw the platform as a modernized version of essentially Washington Journal or an AM radio call-in show, and I really appreciated it. And it seemed like the people that called in, very thoughtful, are they have a mind to understand. They have ears that are tuned to learning instead of reacting. And I've noticed, man, I've really noticed that has diminished a considerable amount, particularly in the chat. And so I wonder, from a sociological perspective, perhaps, why is it that we can't engage in these issues that we all agree are important, or certainly important enough to take up some of our time? Why do we engage in a way that is unproductive and trolling and ad hominem versus engaging in a way to build understanding and to learn from one another as fellow human beings?
Vincent?
All right. So when Two-Way, if you look back to Two-Way a year ago, the entire conversation was about Biden and the debate and what are they going to do. So every conversation was about the election because that was the important conversation. And it is true that many of the people a year ago had a much higher information base. Okay. And I've actually talked about this with other people that we know, and I don't want to mention their names.
Mm-hmm.
So Mark had to get more people, so he had to go more horizontal. A year ago, it was a very vertical, niched, political, intellectual, people that had a very deep understanding of public policy. So as time went on after the election, he had to get more horizontal, and you then get people on the perimeters that don't have as much public policy depth. I'm trying to be kind. And, this idea that, like, for example, I've discussed this, like, we all need to come together. Well, you know, it, were we together as a nation in 1955? No. Could talk to Chris. Chris will give you that lecture. I mean, if you were black before 1964, it wasn't a great America.
30
Okay.
seconds, Vincent.
Okay, and then in 1965, we had Vietnam War with 500,000 troops in Vietnam. That wasn't a great time. Then 1975, we had post-Watergate and post-Vietnam. Did we come together then? No. President Reagan was elected, and he was called an amiable dunce by Tip O'Neill and many Democrats. The Democrats did not like him. Then Iran-Contra in 1987. So, and I can go on and on and on. This idea that we need to come together as a nation. We never have come together as a nation. It's not like that, okay? And for these people to think that we're going to get to some place like that is not going to happen. I mean, that's not America.
Okay. Andre?
Yeah, I think Josh asked that question, and I'm like, well, do we turn to St. Augustine, Thomas Aquinas? I mean, we're all a bunch of hairless apes trying to pretend that we're, decent people. So I think, part of it is the internet. I want to say Discord, but that's not the right word. But the ability to have conversations. There are people on the chat that are completely anonymous that never show themselves. I've remarked about this before when we can have pleasant conversations sometimes, and then I see people just, in the chat for the main show saying, calling women whores who complain about Trump, or all like, whoa, like we're breaking the bounds of it seems something you would be less comfortable talking to a person even like this. But especially if you're just texting with people, it seems that the vitriol level or the permission to be a troll becomes way more than you would do in person with somebody. You would never. I think people make memes about this, or comedy videos online. Like, if people actually behave like they did, like they spoke in their text, it would be insane. So. I think I think that's a big part of it. Thanks, ML. But also I want to add that we've also had a big change in terms of what two-way has been. I think it's also a startup business. Like, understand that Mark found some investors. He's got to make it profitable at some point, which is almost impossible for podcasts. But he's got to figure out a way. They've been through several different hosts. I think. Any Democrats on would see a marked difference in the way Dan interprets the Democratic Party with different Democrats who have been on before. So I think it's just it's a finding process for now.
Thank you, Andre. Joshua?
Yeah, and I just wanted to make sure I was clear. My question was certainly not coming from a utopian Pollyanna-ish place. So yeah, and I don't think Americans are going to come together. I'm not suggesting that this is some sort of kumbaya moment. I'm specifically asking, and I think Andre, hit it. But the specific question and the specific thought is, why go through the steps to subscribe to the two-way platform and then get the email invitation for the Zoom invite and then spend an hour of your morning trolling? I mean, is it a psychological outlet that like soothes people, or is it or is it something different? When this program certainly was founded, and again, the expansion, understand the expansion and the horizontal expansion that Vincent was talking about as well. But what is produced from that? Like, what is produced from that as opposed to learning and to learning from one another in a way that might clarify your own resolutions?
Joshua, one question for you. I'm sure you've heard of Sun Tzu, right? Art of War.
Of course.
What about Lao Tzu? Tao Te Ching.
Yeah, not as familiar with that, but
exactly.
I did go through. Look, everybody's gone through their little new agey, phase roll. So,
well, but I point that out because the association of Sun Tzu as the be all end all of Asia is actually where the glitch is, because Sun Tzu is the worst of Asia in a sense, if you think, because that's all about trolling. versus Lao Tzu, but that's just for the YouTubers to dig into. Wesley from Michigan.
I'm reminded the Times London in a generation back did an essay, and they wanted their academics and their smart people, to respond to this question: what in the world is wrong with the world today? And G.K. Chesterton responded, and he just wrote, "Dear sirs, comma, I am G.K. Chesterton," right? The idea being that until we are able to look inward and say, I have my own motives, my own problems that need dealt with, and and I'm conveying to others in a posture of humility, then you're not going to get the kind of civil dialogue that you're looking at. We have to look inward and say, we're all part of the problem. We all have a nature that is bent in towards self. I would recommend, if you want to really explore this issue, and I think you're on point here so far as it being a form of psychological release, right? Looking for vindication, validation, trying to make sense of things. I think it's more of that than we would like to admit. But Carl Trueman has done work in a book called it's called The Rise and Triumph of the Modern Self. And the idea is that the spirit of our age is expressive individualism, and we live in an age of extreme self-interest. And I think it is an excellent book to kind of think out, like, why are people responding to each other the way that they are today? It is because we have reached the apex of postmodern thought where the individual has become the center. And we don't think of ourselves as much as previous generation did with reference to the communities and the institutions that we used to engage in alongside of one another. That I would lean in that direction to answer that question. It's a big conversation. I'm done now. So
Thank you, Wesley. Thank you, Wesley. Dan?
So I'm going to approach that question from my point of view, seeing how two-way in general, I think everyone could agree, is basically viewed by mostly people who had voted for Trump. I think my people who voted for Kamala, like me, like Chris Simmons, maybe Andre, are in the minority. So in the chat, there's a lot of hatred towards Democrats or rude comments. So it's gonna be that we push back. Two of the biggest trolls, the biggest troll on the planet is Donald Trump himself. So he's the one that we talk about on a daily basis. And stuff that he says gets laughed off. Oh, that's just Trump being Trump. But he's created this environment. One of the hosts on the show, Sean Spicer, the horrible things that he said about Democrats today. So there's going to be pushback. And that's why this happens in the chat, is because stuff like what Sean said today gets allowed to be said without any pushback by Mark and very little by Dan T. So take that for what it's worth.
Thank you, Dan. And I'd like to, I don't want to say pick on, but Frank just joined us. Frank, we're talking about the general nature of Mark's show, how it's gone from one way to another. I don't know if you have any observations or you're just listening for now, which is totally cool, but I'm going to throw you and unmute so you can then say pass or not.
Well, it's nice to be on with you guys. And, I'm so used to Sean talking that, when he throws shade at the Democrats, doesn't even register with me.
Tunes out. You tune it out.
No, it's not that I tune it out. It's just that it's sort of par for the course. I raised my hand during this morning show because I had a couple of things to say, and I said something yesterday or the day before about how I was delighted at the results of the New York election because the system's not working, guys, for the voters that voted, these people in. And I'm sorry, that they voted for whatever his name is. I forgot.
Mamdani.
Mamdani.
Ma'am, you know what? I'm gonna anglicize it for the YouTube viewers, because seriously, when people try to like, oh, I love your tandoori chicken, I'm like, you can just say tandoori. So it's ma'am, like, thank you, ma'am. Dan, right? Ma'am Danny. Ma'am Danny. That should work.
Man,
fine.
Danny.
Ma'am Danny. Okay, so how do you say it correctly, though?
Oh gosh, I bet Zoran doesn't even know. Mumdani. I mean,
Mumdani.
Mumdani.
Okay.
Oh.
I just haven't learned it. Okay.
Comrade Mumdani, according to ML Shop. But sorry, continue.
I love foreign languages. I know a few of them. Anyway, so but anyway, I was delighted about that. Listen, the negativity works in politics. It works in the media. I mean, there's many articles and studies about this, and the negativity drives ratings in the media, and the politicians latch onto that and that sort of thing. So it works because it raises money and it motivates people. So this is a part of human nature so far, and I'm not sure to what extent it has to do with the self. Of course, we are, I agree that we're sort of self-oriented and pursuit of happiness and that sort of thing, and that's about it. And but because we're so separated, I don't see that there's a lot of community spirit here. I see that one side of the equation has the TDS, and we know what that means, and the other side has this anger at what they feel is their suppression over the years, and the unfairness of it all. Now, so these have to be healed, and Mark's show is supposedly trying to do that or bring them together, but it's not enough. It's not enough. It is not scaling enough. It's hard to scale. It requires hours of time to participate, and so it's not. It doesn't seem to be going as quickly as I'd like, for something like this, and it's not addressing the hatred of Trump and the the derangement, so to speak, and it's not addressing somehow soothing the right wingers who are so angry at the past, but they take their victory laps, but they're still angry and they're still outraged here and there by all these things. I mean, the ones with the TDS are never going to listen to the other side. They just don't. They just dismiss it, and they are enthralled by the coverage as it is. The CNN stuff and all that kind of thing. And then the right wingers, I don't know what exactly what they do, but I guess they have their they have their platforms, and and a lot of that is the same kind of, or maybe a different kind of misinformation as on the mainstream media. It's all misinformation, guys. I'm sorry.
Frank, we pray Mark Halperin or his better angels are tuning in, because I mean, what you said right there is part of the healing process, right? And the show itself, giving the folks to speak up, speak out a little bit more. Kelly, I know you're in the back of the queue, but you haven't spoken yet. If you wouldn't mind jumping up, I'd appreciate it. Or you need a little more time?
No, I just don't want to cut anyone. I was late. Yeah. Oh,
no tardies here. No tardies here.
Yeah.
On America's Talk Show.
Just respond to Frank and what you said, because I put the whole Peter Thiel email in the chat earlier on the show, but it's much longer than what I read. But it gets it kind of into this idea of, like, Frank, what you were saying, that the two-way is so great. It brings people together, but it is time consuming, right? It is. And I was also surprised. I expected it would like exponentially blow up. I mean, I still think it's growing, and to your comment about it takes time and energy, but maybe that's important, right? Like, maybe we need to, I'm younger than you, and I'm at the end, well, not quite, I'm a millennial, but towards the younger end. But I've got like younger siblings and cousins that are more the Alpha, Gen Z, whatever X. And they're often just looking for a quick fix, right? Like there's not, maybe we need to just be more blunt that, you know, good things, like if you want good things to happen or hard things, it's going to be work and it's going to be time.
Yeah, maybe spending a summer, you know, picking crops or something, or going into a nursing home, asking the elders, would you like some water, some ice water, ma'am? Can I help you to the rest? Whatever that service is, right?
Yeah, or even
Right,
like,
but they need to be paid for it.
well,
Look, it's only going to get worse. We have artificial intelligence, robots coming for all the jobs, mostly. And my daughter's 20 and 21, and I just don't know what to say.
Okay, Kelly.
No, I agree with all that. I think what I was trying to say didn't come off right. That understanding, like, you can't take a 15-second clip from a political show and get the whole background, right? That like the education needs to start much younger, right? Having and just getting the quick clips, the TikToks, right? That I think we're saying the same thing, Frank, that this generation is like, they are frustrated. They are being left behind. I mean, could you imagine graduating from college with what, $300,000 in debt with a business degree, and you come out making 40K, right? You trying to live in New York City? It's crazy, right? And you can't even pay your rent, let alone save money to buy a house. New York City's extreme, but even where I live outside of Rochester, you know, home prices have almost doubled, right? So but they don't necessarily understand all the deeper things at work, which isn't all their fault. And I can see how some of them do feel tricked, right? But
sure, well, of course, but they are trapped.
They are.
Frank,
are.
I'm going to give you a minute to respond, and then we're going to get back to the queue. Go ahead, Frank.
Oh, I got the minute. Okay. Well, yeah. As I say, it's only going to get worse, and the Democrats, have an opportunity to get on the side of this issue and say, yeah, the system's not working, it's breaking down, it's under attack from so many different directions. You know, first it was globalization, and that was a blow, and now it's robotics and AI. You bring manufacturing back here, it's going to be automated, and so we need a way to transition our people out of the go to work, earn a salary, this kind of thing, and that's who you are, that's what you're worth, and something else, some other thing, and not only that, but also a sense of purpose in their lives. What are they here for? Some mission or something like that. They don't have God. They don't have Islam. They don't have a sense of purpose. So Democrats would work on this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I just say this one last thing?
Yes. Please, Kelly.
I agree, Frank, with everything you're saying. Not only do they not kind of have a sense of purpose, they also don't have a physical ownership stake, right? Yeah. It's not as good as maybe not as tight as a moral sense of purpose, but they don't have anything they own.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you for all that. Vincent, I'm going to give you a minute here. Of course, you have more time, but let's try the minute, Vincent.
Okay. So, no, I actually, I've really enjoyed two-way. I know other public policy people like myself that joined it. They never will raise their hand to talk because they want to help Mark get new people like Kelly. Like, I enjoyed listening to Kelly last night. I'm really happy she's here. I then listened to I'm like, here's a younger woman that has a good handle on public policy, and she's, but then again, there are some people that raise their hand that go on that Mark needs to have a horizontal group that, don't fundamentally have no understanding of American public policy. And I just want to say, in regard to housing, I graduated from college in 1979. There were 3 recessions in the 70s. The prime interest rate was 21%. The unemployment rate was 14. They came out with something known as the misery index. And at that point, we had baby boomers who were not getting married. They couldn't buy homes. It was considered a crisis. And my first mortgage, even in 1985, was 14%. So, it's we've got the problem now is the prices, it's affordability, but
30 seconds, Vincent.
we have faced this before, and I enjoy. I'm glad I've gotten to see Kelly and listen to Kelly, and I've actually enjoyed, meeting Erin and Chris and Shaw and yourself and Professor Kenny, and it's been good, But like I said, Mark has to go horizontal as any media company does, and when you talk about, like, Rush Limbaugh had 20 million listeners, but if a person would call Rush Limbaugh, there was a producer that would screen the person out. But in the case of Mark, he lets anybody come on, which is the way it is in 2025.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to bring Andre in here.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just shocked because Vincent didn't name me as one of his.
Sorry about that.
No. We know who's on the special list.
No. I've enjoyed meeting you, and as you know, I've mentioned you to Senator Blumenthal.
We kid. We love each other.
I know.
You forgot your own paisan.
I love this conversation. I think that I'm glad that Vincent mentioned a couple of things. The first time he spoke, he mentioned about how people made fun of Reagan, and I deeply remember also how Republicans made fun of Jerry. No, sorry, I don't remember. I remember the circle of people that I grew up around, and knowing how Republicans were making fun of Jerry Ford before then. So it's a cycle of things that, it's a vicious cycle of people being catty about each other within parties and then parties against parties. But I also appreciate Vincent mentioning just the radical difference of life back then and now. As we talk about cost of living, et cetera, we cannot dispute the vast change of interest rates in this country from what was back then till now. Home ownership is a different story now than back then. It seems impossible today for many reasons, but the interest rates are certainly it's mind-blowing. Like we can't imagine what it's like to live with people in my generation and younger can't imagine what it's like to live with that rate of interest. That's why people don't save anymore, because there's no point to putting money into the bank if there's no interest rate on that. It's better to go into the market of some sort. Kelly, loved everything you said. I read that Teal letter years ago, and I still don't agree with a lot of it, and I think he's a crazy person, just because he's a billionaire who I don't believe he's done anything near like a normal day's work in his life, but that's just my personal opinion about him. I still read the stuff he puts out because I need to know what those thoughts are. But like in that letter specifically, I thought it was definitely removed from what actual people's experience is and more his philosophical thoughts about what people should be doing. And I think just the only way forward is just more communication. AI may be a part of that. Maybe it may be, there's a lot to it in detriment, but there's also, as Mark Cuban was saying last week, people today with zero business acumen have so much available with AI to ask them how to incorporate an LLC, to have them start a business from scratch. There's a lot more opportunities that we just aren't used to. that also will change things. So there's positives and negatives to both things online.
Thank you for that, Andre. And I would just like to share with the YouTube viewers a couple things. Goat, G-O-E-T-H-E has a play, Faust, F-A-U-S-T. This is something to engage the kids in. And apparently one of the main things of the play is resolving the interest rate and basically freeing the sin from the land, right? In terms of what happens when you can't borrow properly and how society breaks down. And then there was a second thing that I forgot, so I'm going to go to Joshua.
Hey, thanks. So I'll say first off, just echo Vincent's sentiments about some of the people and some of the relationships that have been forged on two-way, and I'll specifically call out Andre because I've really enjoyed the conversations and his expertise and unique perspective based on his knowledge, based on his career that he brings to conversations that I find worthwhile. So thank you. I would just sort of, to wrap up my initial point, I would just encourage everyone, even people that feel outnumbered, to not lash out, don't troll, but engage with the subject matter. And if you think your opinion is worthwhile, you should try to encourage understanding of that opinion as opposed to engaging in ad hominem attacks. But that's all I'll say about that. Look, so I'm 40 years old. I guess that makes me perhaps the oldest millennial, or a cusper. I think that makes me the oldest millennial. I have an uncle in Northern Virginia who is sort of a baby boomer Gen Xer cusper as well. He always used to talk about how he would, we're all from Indiana, my family, so he used to talk about how he paid for his college through a corn husking business that he started during the summer in Indiana. And I was like, okay, that's great. How does that apply today? And not too long ago, we looked up the difference, like what he paid in tuition in the early 80s versus what the tuition costs now. And he was shocked when his when in the early 80s his tuition was $5,000, and now tuition for that same school is close to $50,000. And we're talking about an engineering school that doesn't have a doctorate program, okay, in Indiana. That's the same price. Like that's like Yale prices. So people on both sides need to really take a good look at that and recognize that the environment has changed, and that again, I love Professor Kenny. I don't think he's on the after show today, but yeah, maybe the bootstraps are just a lot shorter than they used to be.
Thank you for that, Joshua. Dan?
So Josh mentioned me without mentioning me, so I'll respond. As far as the chat goes in the morning, I only attack people who personally attack me for my weight on there. I've never attacked anyone. I'm going to finish. I've never attacked anyone personally. I go after Trump. They get upset that I do, and they come at me personally. So I'll personally attack them back. That will never change. It's not me who starts it. Okay? And as far as this thing with this phrase that the right loves to use, TDS, some cheap way to deflect any criticism of Donald Trump. Anytime that a liberal has an opinion about Donald Trump, the response is, oh, you have TDS. So maybe the right needs to take care of that bumper sticker phrase. The other thing is like, Well, I lost my point. I'll think about it again and come back. But that's really it. I'm going to defend myself.
That's fair, Dan.
That's the bottom line.
Two questions I like to ask anyone interested in, improving the Democratic Party or whatever, right? And I'll just give you my answers first, okay? If I had to pick two anchor points for the Democrats, I've said it before, Thomas Jefferson and JFK. Do you have any two presidents you would like to share that you would uphold? Democratic.
I've been listening to you guys in the morning without engaging. The hours that you guys are spending trying to fix the Democrat Party when your party needs fixing as well is ridiculous. There's never any critique from you guys, from your own party, from all the crap that's going on now. The takeover of Los Angeles, where I live, by this authoritarian, I can't say the word, dictator. All the things that we're not talking about, like his deregulation of asbestos, taking down of suicide hotlines, like all these things that we don't talk about because we're talking about these national issues or the New York elections. Like, there's things in your guys' party that you need to fix, but day in, day out, I listen to you guys, and it's all a critique of what the Democrats need to do. We're not in power. You guys are in power. You guys are creating the policies right now. So critique that. That's my critique, the Democrat Party.
Okay. Wesley?
I just want to go back to how Joshua started us here. And I'm using the platform, Joshua, to engage with people in good faith. It is sometimes difficult to keep myself from retaliating in the chat. Okay. And I've even joked about it. I'll just write smack in the chat at the beginning because it can be difficult not to get that psychological release, which is why I think we need to posture ourselves with a bit of humility and actually listen. I try to listen to Chris, for example, the way that he approaches things with Rays. We've discussed things back and forth. It's been good for me. It's been good for me to listen to Daryl, and he's got me to think about the historical realities of the Palestinian conflict. It's not easy, though. It's actually a bit painful to try to let your guard down, so to speak, and to actually listen to the other side. And believe it or not, Dan, I do listen to what you're saying. I have to ask a question. However, when you type all caps in the chat and say, for example, Trump is a pedophile. I mean, what is the net benefit in doing that? And a sincere question, do you actually believe that Trump is an Epstein Island pedophile, or are you doing that just to retaliate as you've spoken because someone spoke out against something?
I've never said those words, that Donald Trump's a pedophile.
So
that's never happened.
So yeah, I read it might not have been exactly Donald Trump is a pedophile, but
Well, that's what you said. I said, so I just want to
but
clear the
yeah, but
record.
you used the word pedophile yesterday in
No,
reference
no,
to
no, 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 no. I've never used that word. That's never happened.
Well, okay,
Okay, let's just let
I
Wesley
might be
finish.
remembering wrong, but let me just ask the question. When you respond in all caps and you make, an inflammatory text, are you doing it because you actually believe these things or because you're just you're sick of being attacked and you're retaliating? That's my question.
I believe a lot of the stuff that I put. I mean, I believe all the stuff I put.
Okay.
But
So
I mean, I gotta push back. You're saying things that I never said. So that's your interpretation of me,
I'm sorry.
obviously.
I'm sorry. I'll screenshot one next time.
Okay, we're gonna leave the receipts for the future then, and I just want to get back.
I mean, it's kind of ridiculous to come on here and say that I said that Trump's a
No,
pedophile.
okay, all right.
I've
We're
never
going to
said
correct the
that.
record. We're going to correct the record. These are just claims, and no one here controls any party. There are no party officials.
I've said he's a traitor. You can screenshot that, and I'll tell you that right now. Those are things I say every day.
Okay, all right. That's all good. I'm just going to hit the mute. Hold on. We want to keep the show moving. Okay, so, all right. And now I'm going to do this. This is what I've been told to do. Daryl.
Yeah, morning, guys. Yeah, I don't want Dan O to feel like he's being attacked here. Like, I understand where he comes from, where he's like a lot of times the only Democrat on here, and I feel that way sometimes when I'm arguing stuff about Iran or whatever. It's like however many people on here versus me. So I can understand Dan's frustration, and I appreciate that he comes on and participates, and provides that insight. But I acknowledge that it can probably be difficult. I just wanted to steer the conversation back to housing affordability a little bit, and this Mamdani guy, I haven't really been paying too close of attention to him very much, but now that he's won the nomination, I spent a bunch of time last night watching a bunch of his videos. And I don't know if you guys have done that. You've just sat down for 30 minutes and gone through a bunch of his videos that his campaign and his personal account has put out. This guy is an excellent communicator. Republicans, we need to be worried about this, because he's really not talking about any of this woke stuff. It's all economic populism, whether you agree with him or not. And he's very well spoken and makes compelling arguments. And sometimes the arguments are things that even a Republican right-wing person can get down with from an economic standpoint, like eliminating a bunch of useless regulations. So I think it'd be unwise of us to underestimate this guy. Now, maybe it'll turn out that he's a bad mayor, but if the Democrat Party starts talking like this guy, we're in big trouble, guys.
Thank you, Daryl. Ribbon, you've been waiting patiently. Let me unmute you.
Good morning. I guess I don't really know where to start on this conversation, except for I wish that more people had a willingness to listen to both sides. As far as freezing rents, I'm wondering how many actually have rental properties, who understand what it means to
it means no more repairs and maintenance, right, Ribbon? If you're
you've got maintenance costs, you've got overhead costs, you've got insurance costs, you've got employee costs, you have the maintenance cost depending upon the age of the property. You've got government regulations that you have to go by every year that can change. For instance, out in California, earthquake retrofits can change on a dime, and those can be $150,000 at minimum to retrofit that property. So if you have somebody, and then when you look at rent control, there's a lot of people who don't have no subletting in their leases. And if you have no subletting in your leases, guess what? You're renting from the great-great-grandma, and there's no way to get them out. And so you're paying rents that are from 1970, but your water bill's gone up 500% a year. Your electric costs have gone up 350% a year, even though your usage has gone down. Your trash department, everything goes up. Your rent control fees go up, even if they don't have to pay because of COVID. All of those things the government still requires from those property owners.
And Ribbon, I had a friend in a situation where the government will pay the tenant and then expects the tenant to hand the money over to the landlord. And that never happens.
Well, yes, that is actually correct. That happened out in California, where it was on good faith that the tenant gave the landlord the back due rent. And even if they kept it, they would open up a new case for it. I would also go in on the rental properties. Insurance costs alone on properties now are astronomical, if not impossible. So how are you going to get a mortgage if you can't get the insurance? And if you have to if you have to pay for the insurance, you're going to keep the water on. And then the tenants are going to complain to the rent control board that the painting isn't done, that this and that is not done. Okay. So then you look at the rent control and you look at HUD and you look at the low and moderate income. Well, once you look at how much they take, and let's actually back up. If everybody actually had to write a check for their FICA, Medicare, and federal withholding, instead of it automatically being deducted from their paycheck, their perception of taxes would change.
Okay, I want to do this in reverse since Daryl has his thumb up. Daryl?
Well, now that you said that last thing, I'm self-employed.
Right.
So I when I pay my taxes, it's a huge lump sum, and I pay that Social
And you have
Security
estimated
tax.
tax payments every year. And if you don't make that right, you're going to get penalized, correct?
Exactly. Yeah, they
Yes.
want to collect the money from me before I even made the money.
That's absolutely right.
And yeah, most people, most workers, their number one tax is Social Security tax. They don't even realize it. And if you work for an employer, your employer's paying half of that tax.
No, your employer's not paying. Well, your employer is matching that tax, but quite frankly, Daryl, most people don't even know that employers have to match that tax.
Right. Well, when you're self-employed, there's no matching. You have to pay.
I'm aware.
Yeah. So yeah, that's part of why I'm always like on the right wing of things with taxes, because I see the system for what it is. I'm like, holy cow! I can't, like, just income withholding is such an insidious system because people don't know how much they're actually paying in tax.
Funny point, Daryl. Let me interrupt you there with that, because you have not only your federal withholding, your FICA, your Medicare. Then let's just use California as an example, because that likes to be a favorite. So you have California, you have federal, you have state income tax. You might be in a lower income unit, you might be in a rent controlled unit. But most of the time, those places don't have parking. If they do have parking, it's extra, usually $150 or more a month. Even street parking, when it first started out there, was like $25 a year. Now it's $75 a year. You get charged 10 cents a paper bag anytime you forget your reusable bag. You've got to park when you meter. So, and then also your cell phone bill, your taxes on your cell phone bill, if you have a 310 area code, is more expensive than if you have a 713 area code. Tax, tax, tax. So out in California, 45 to 55 cents of every dollar you make goes to some taxing entity.
And I just want to say, this is to me a nonpartisan statement. Jeffersonian Democrats of the world unite.
The money part has nothing to do with the politics. I don't care about the politics of it. I care about how much money is getting out of people's pockets and for what.
Amen, Ribbon.
And it's to service the debt. That's what it is.
So when you talk about things like real estate, well, when everybody deserves to buy a home and you don't have to have any money down, well, what are you going to do? You're obviously going to falsify the prices of those homes because more people have the ability and the demand has gone up. So those prices are going to go up. So you falsely inflate the market. And that's what happened. And then it dies. So everybody decided they wanted to get a home rather than having the education of what that actually meant. It sounds too good to be true. A lot of times it is.
Daryl, take 1 minute, then we go to Joshua.
Yeah, I mean, on homes, I think one of the big issues, though, is that the asset prices of real estate have just inflated at a tremendous rate. I mean, my parents, they bought their home in the mid 80s for like 80-something thousand. And if you were to try to buy that house today, like if they were to sell it, it'd be worth 600,000. So you're talking about a 7x increase over time. And wages haven't gone up by 7x. I mean, wages are relatively flat over the last 30 years. So it's, even though the interest rates are historically lower, Vincent, you brought that up. Like my parents had like a 12% mortgage or something, but the interest rates have gone down relatively, but the asset prices have exploded. I'm trying to buy a house now, and it's like you have to spend like $500,000, $600,000 just to get like a 1,500 square foot house where I live, which is Montgomery County, Pennsylvania. But it's a real issue.
Thanks, Daryl. Joshua?
Yeah, two quick things. I've never commented on Dan's weight ever in my life, but I'm pretty sure that when I was responding to Chris and reminding Chris of the criticisms that I've had with the Republican Party that I've actually shared in committee, which is where the sausage is made as far as candidate selection is concerned. I'm pretty sure that, I'll paraphrase, I'm pretty sure he just simply called me ignorant in the chat the other day. And listen, yeah, I completely agree with Daryl. And here's another criticism of the Republican Party. The
Once again, something I didn't say.
Okay. What did you say? Actually, what did you say instead of engaging with the points that I was making about redlining, et cetera? What'd you say? What'd you call me?
What's that?
instead of engaging with the points that I made
You
about
made a state. You
historic
made a state.
redlining.
You made a statement,
Mhm.
and Chris responded back to you, and I simply said that maybe you don't understand what he's referring to. I don't remember exactly what I said, but you took it another way, and that's it.
Okay, all right. I'm going to
You
mute
guys,
you,
you
Dan.
guys
Let
say a
Joshua
lot of
finish.
things
Okay.
about. You guys say a lot of things about what I say that I never say. It's
Misunderstandings. It's
Okay.
a fast chat. I'm just going to let Joshua finish here, and then we're going to get to
Yeah.
Vincent.
So the other big criticism that I have with Republican thought, and I think this is more traditional Republican thought, is the idea that growth effects are the idea that growth effects are significant, because growth effects aren't really all that significant when it comes to when it comes to debt reduction, et cetera. The Republican Party doesn't do a good enough job explaining how deficit spending and debt impacts regular people's lives. And the idea that it's just, oh, well, we're going to have a booming economy. Growth effects aren't really going to help that debt and deficit.
Thank you, Joshua. Vincent, you've been waiting patiently.
No, Joshua was correct in what he just said. I've talked about this ad infinitum about the $37 trillion national debt on 9/11, and we all know that I was a 9/11 first responder. The national debt was $5 trillion, and after 9/11, President Bush did $5 trillion. And when I say President Bush, I always have to be careful. I meant the Bush administration. Always remember, both parties vote on the budget. So when the Democrats are in control, they vote on the budget. When the Republicans are in control, they vote on the budget. It goes to the Senate. It goes to a president. So during Bush's presidency, because of 9/11, he added $5 trillion. Then we had the 2008, 2009 financial crisis. President Obama, during his first 3 years, Congress had to increase the national debt by $5 trillion. Then his last 5 years, another $5 trillion. He left office, it was $20 trillion. And then President Trump came into office, and his presidency did $7 trillion. And then President Biden's presidency did $9 trillion. So now we're at $37 trillion. And many of you know that I have my own nonprofit group, and we have webinars every month. And my webinar next month will be with the distinguished David M. Walker, CPA, former Controller General to George Herbert Walker Bush and President Clinton. I communicate with him often, and he is despondent because we have interest expense of $1 trillion, and both parties have contributed to our national debt and our DOD.
Where did it start, though, Vincent? How did it start?
Okay, it started, so in 1981, we crossed $1 trillion.
Whoa, you skipped over many decades.
So it started from George Washington to 1981. We accumulated $1 trillion in national debt.
You're talking, wait, George Washington, the founding president.
Yeah, so from
Okay,
George.
but where did it? Because in the Constitution, Joshua left, but he was talking about.
I'm just telling you the timeline. So,
but it's correct that the Constitution stipulates what type of money should be.
Right.
So, and FDR, I want to draw this point in. Do you know where I'm going with FDR?
Yeah, I know.
Where am I going, Vincent?
I want to stick to the timeline. You can talk about FDR. I just wanted to stick to the timeline of the debt, and that we all have to understand that the Democratic Party controlled Congress from 1954 to 1994 for 40 years, and all these social programs we have, they're all wonderful, were passed during that
Okay,
time
but
period.
Vincent, this is the problem, right? The general public and Americans think that Congress has this blank check and that's always been the way it is. And then one party says, no, we're the better ones. But we're forgetting the constitutional limits and that FDR, you want to talk about FDR can be claimed to be a traitor because he took away gold from the everyman, right?
Right.
You know, why did we, some say, oh, we bowed down during COVID. The Americans just took it. We took it when FDR had people turn over their gold. Shamsul on the other day, he said, if you try that in Asia, the whole nation would have burned down. Okay. I don't know what happened during that time. No one was alive during that time. But we have to look at the past and go, what happened here? The creation of Fort Knox, the creation of this central massive gold fund, the so-called progressive era, okay, which indeed I claim, and many others, that it was a regret. That was the beginning of the regression, okay, where you took away. And here's for the YouTubers out there: riddle me this: Olympic medals were made in gold, so we can spend all this money, and who knows how much money gets spent on the Olympics. But the actual athlete that is risking their body, right, their actual physical stature or whatever, why is that talent no longer rewarded in gold? Dan has his hand up. He has some comments, Vincent. Let's see what Dan has to say.
So I put a bunch of stuff in there about California, whoever, you know, is critical of California and their taxes, how we have to fend for red states that can't take care of themselves. So maybe you guys want to read up on that a little bit. Also, like this whole thing with like COVID and shutting things down, like we didn't know what was happening at the time. Okay.
Well, some of us
Hold
did.
on. We didn't know what was happening at the time. And Trump was privy to information that none of us were, and he ignored it for 3 months. So this idea that it's like Democrats were shutting everything down, Trump was in charge. He was the president. He likes to force his might on California right now with National Guards and the military. Where was his power back then? I just see a lot of like, when it comes to COVID, the Republicans love to go after the Democrats, but you guys were in charge.
Okay. All right. That's fair enough. Vincent, did you have anything you wanted to add before we close the show?
I just want to, okay, so we passed the national $1 trillion in 81. So the Reagan administration with Arthur Laffer and 100 economists believed it was okay to borrow money. So President Reagan, after the failures of President Carter with the failure in the desert and the military being at its all-time low in the post-Vietnam era, decided to put through Congress an additional $300 billion a year and increase the DoD budget by $1.5 trillion. So when Reagan got into his presidency, the national debt was $1 trillion, and when he left, it was $3 trillion. And his greatest regret was the fact that we had increased the national debt by $2 trillion. At that point, these famous economists like Arthur Laffer in 1981 said it's okay to borrow because we will have a trickle down economy. Now, that's been debated for a long time, but this is what got us onto this deficit spending. It was created during the Reagan administration with the belief that it was okay to increase the national debt. And it wasn't discussed until 92 with Ross Perot, who then went on Larry King every night to tell the American people that it was now $4 trillion, the national debt. So this hamster wheel of deficits was created in the 80s to stimulate growth.
Vincent, is it fair to call it Keynesianism? Keynesianism, the economist Keynes.
Well, the Orpha Laffer people, the Milton Friedman people say it's not Keynesian.
Well, okay, and that's where I'm, and then we got
they totally disagree with you. I don't know.
Right, but okay, Milton Friedman, this is where I want to correct the record for folks, right? Because Milton Friedman himself does not subscribe to Karl Menger. So the root of Austrian economics, it's all mathematics, folks, okay? Karl Menger was the supreme mathematician. He's one of the top Europeans. He should be top 5 in the most important Europeans, okay? And he was the tutor to the crown prince, okay, the heir of the Habsburgs, the Holy Roman Empire, okay? Karl Menger, this is where it all flows from. Ludwig von Mises, Hayek, all these names get thrown out. So on that note, we're going to close the show. Folks can hang out with us on Zoom, and
Sorry if we cut anyone off, but that's a wrap. Remember, you can catch us live Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern. It's your chance to join the conversation and have your voice heard. Just check the link in the description or visit americastalk.show. Together, through the free exchange of ideas, we can truly make America great again. Don't miss out. Tune in and be part of the dialogue.